Hey everyone, Temporal here, and today we are covering the evolving legal saga over at Activision Blizzard. And the news of the day is that Activision Blizzard says it will pay an $18 million settlement to settle the harassment lawsuit. Now, Activision Blizzard actually has multiple lawsuits coming against them. They've got some stuff coming against them from California, they've got stuff coming against them federally from the SEC. So we're going to have to see exactly which one this is in the story here, and whether it's been approved by the courts, whether it's just been agreed upon by the two parties. Really, how much of their legal trouble goes away with this one. So that's what we're going to get into. If you guys do have questions, comments, feel free to throw them up in chat. I will get to them. That will cover a bit of what's going on first. So I'm not ignoring you. We're just getting a little bit of background first here. You can always jump to the front with a super chat. Okay, so CNN Business reports Activision Blizzard will pay $18 million to settle a lawsuit by U.S. government agency alleging harassment and discrimination, the firm said Monday. Okay, so Activision Blizzard is announcing this. The gaming company, which owns hugely popular titles such as Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Candy Crush, announced it has reached the settlement with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, in response to a complaint the agency filed earlier in the day. Okay, so basically this was filed and immediately gone. So this is like, oh, EEOC files and gone, immediately reached a settlement on this one. So this isn't really some of the older stuff that we've been looking at here. There's still things out there unless this, somehow includes those things. But we generally wouldn't expect it to. As part of the settlement agreement, which is subject to court approval, so not yet approved, Activision Blizzard said it will create an $18 million fund to compensate and make amends to eligible claimants. Okay? Who determines whether they're eligible? Whether they were part of a class? Like, what is our fact finder to determine whether they're eligible to these funds? Is it the courts? Is it some sort of arbiter? Is it some court appointee? It's probably not going to be Activision Blizzard. I'd like to know a little bit more here, because is there going to be an admission of wrong to allow for this? There's never an admission of wrong, but I just want more details. Okay. So, any remaining amount will either be donated to charities focused on harassment, gender equality, and women in the video game industry, or will be used to create diversity and inclusion initiatives within the company. I mean, if there's some left, again, I really want to know more about how this is being distributed. Like, these are good PR things to say, like, oh, any left will be spent on these things. But I think most people are probably in the this isn't very much for what's alleged to have happened camp. Um, so subject to court approval, compensated to make amends to eligible claimants. I really want to know what this eligible word means. Like, again, it would just be like, okay, can anyone just say, hey, maybe this happened, or did they need to originally be in the claim? And do even the less credible ones in the claim, then they're going to get it too. Who's making the determination? Is there some court appointee who's going to do this thing? I want to know more about this. Statement: There is no place anywhere at our company for discrimination, harassment, or unequal treatment of any kind, and I am grateful to the employees who have bravely shared their experiences. You are lying through your teeth about being grateful for that, Bobby. That's the CEO. I remain unwavering in my commitment to make Activision Blizzard one of the most inclusive, respected, and respectful workplaces, he added. I would like less lawsuits. Please leave me alone. That's what I just read there. Okay. And a complaint filed earlier Monday accused Activision Blizzard of subjecting female employees to sexual harassment, retaliating against them for complaining about harassment, and paying female employees less than male employees. Okay, so this was filed Monday, and it was originally this was posted late Monday, that this closed. So this has been updated today, but complaint got filed, immediately pay, we're going to settle, and we're going to do it for this amount. So Blizzard is very much still in the woods, still has other lawsuits out there, unless the other agencies back off and go, well, you got hit by them, you've been punished, you've been reprimanded in the public. Somehow I don't think that's likely. Okay. The company also discriminated against employees due to their pregnancy, the complaint alleged. Okay? Kodak said the company will continue to be vigilant in stamping out harassment and discrimination. We thank the EEOC for its constructive engagement as we work to fulfill our commitments to eradicate inappropriate conduct in the workplace. Yes, thank you for coming after us legally. I'm sure that's really how you feel, CEO of Activision Blizzard. One of several agencies to go after Activision Blizzard this year, with the company embroiled in controversy ever since an earlier lawsuit by California's Department of Fair Employment and Housing. The lawsuit, filed in July, alleged a frat boy work culture where women were subjected to constant discrimination and harassment. I mean, frat boy isn't a charge. Let's actually get to the charges here. It kicked off a storm of dissent within Activision Blizzard's own workforce that ultimately led to hundreds of employees staging a walkout at the company offices in Irvine, California. Okay, we could click through for more details there, but staging a walkout that's planned, that's delayed for anyway, doesn't matter. Okay, the company is also facing a complaint from the National Labor Relations Board filed earlier this month, accusing it of unfair labor practices, as well as an investigation by Securities and Exchange Commission that the company said last week it is cooperating with. These actions are still pending, and Activision Blizzard said it continues to productively engage with regulators. So we have lawsuits coming from 4 different agencies. We have this one, which just happened and resolved immediately, and this one came out of... Let's just make sure that we get this right. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, gone for $18 million. Not officially gone yet. The court still has to approve it, but for $18 million, which maybe will get distributed, maybe if there's money left over, will be sent to charities, maybe will just get used on equality initiatives in the company. So, using it on equality company stuff in the company, they'll just spin as good PR in the future. So that's sort of okay, business expense type thing. But okay, EEOC looks like that's going to be gone for $18 million, but they're still going to have on the table what started this all, which was the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, and that's probably the one with the most teeth that's been going on for the longest. They'd been gathering data for the longest time, and that's what sort of started this storm. Then they've still got National Labor Relations Board complaints, and that's the type of thing that happens when, things are trying to unionize or trying to do whatever and companies don't like it. The NLRB, who is the one who handles that sort of thing, they make rules on whether... Anyways, they make rules regarding to they make rules, they enforce stuff, they handle some of the union stuff between employers and employees when it comes to unionizing, get that sort of thing. And this is the one that we've read about previously that would be tied to, hey, they're trying to get out of the arbitration, they're trying to let everything go to normal court. That would be what this one is. And then Securities and Exchange Commission, which prior to this one was the most recent one, and that's another federal agency that we're looking at. So no, they did not get through this. They did not get this out of the news cycle. They're just trying to, they got this new one potentially out of the news cycle, but they did not get their issues as a whole out of the news cycle and pave the way for everyone to forget about the bad stuff and be ready for, oh yes, now people are enjoying Diablo 2 Remastered, or now people are ready for Overwatch 2, and now it can all be good news. They did not do that with this $18 million settlement. They do still have 3 different agencies, 1 state, 2 federal, that are coming after them. So we'll see how that goes. We will see how that goes. I don't really think this one gives us more background. I saw this one yesterday, though it looks like, yeah, they did a good job of getting this one out pretty early. 18 million. Upgrading policy practices, training, oversight and review. Deal with the EEOC will be in place for 3 years from when it begins. The full terms of the agreement can be found here. Again, not court approved yet. Sure. Okay, and that's just talking about the other probes they're facing. Cool. And then we have some Reddit comments on it as well. We'll get to those, but first let's check in on chat. Val says 18 million sounds so cheap. Well, it's one of the 4 lawsuits that is against them, and this one is specifically from Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And generally, what would happen here is they probably ran this. They, probably have done their legal work. Their legal team at Activision Blizzard probably understands, hey, if we put this in front of a mock jury, if we fake run it, if we do any sort of thing, what almost always happens in these sorts of cases is the mock jury is going to come back with, if they stage their own running of the case, it's always going to come back, well, if they find you guilty, and they're likely to because you're a big evil company and these are small vulnerable people. That's the presumption that people have. That's the what people have as their presumption of what's going on. So you effectively have to convince them otherwise. It's not really an innocent until proven guilty because people have their biases and that's how it is. Those biases may be based in reality, but those are the biases that people have. So they're pretty much always going to be advised by their legal team, settle for any amount, whatever you think the amount is of the settlement is for, even if you think it's too high. They can pretty much guarantee you that if you go to trial and lose, the amount you're going to have to pay is going to be vastly higher. Not like, oh, you're going to pay 20 million or oh, you're going to pay 25 million. Like, no, you're going to pay 600 million, that sort of thing. And obviously I'm making up the number, but that's basically what happens. That's what happens when you hire legal consultants. They run these sort of mock trials for you and they can show you that. So I'm not surprised. They probably didn't even have time to run the mock trial. Maybe they knew this was coming ahead of time. They'd been served papers before they were actually served, or they had their intelligence tell them this, but they just knew, and they knew, hey, if we can get out of this for 18 million, that's probably a good deal on their part. So yeah, it does seem like a low amount, Val, but remember, it's not actually them solving the whole storm that is this mess. It's them getting out of just the EEOC, and it hasn't even been approved by the courts yet. They've still got to deal with California, and California is probably going to be harder on them than the feds will. They've got to deal with the SEC. The SEC one, if memory serves, doesn't look too bad, though someone could certainly spot check me on this. More than spot check me on this, someone could look into this more closely. The SEC stuff could be because, they might have been getting rid of some records that they thought, hey, the penalty for getting rid of the records are less than that, but we don't know that. We don't know their motives. And then we have the third one, the National Labor Relations one, which probably won't be huge either. I expect California is going to hit them the hardest of these four. Okay. Wonder how much of the 18 million is going to the victims and how much to the lawyers? That is always the question. That is always the question, James. But what ends up happening is, the lawyers, and who knows how big the legal team, but lawyers will pull their percent. Is that going to be 30, 40, 20? We don't know. And then the victims are going to get the rest, but it's going to be divided among them in some way. And again, I don't know what the approval process is. I don't know who's picking, oh, yes, you were in this, you weren't in this, whatever, for the distribution of it. I don't know what's going on there. So you split it a bunch of ways and up to what amount, and the leftover goes elsewhere, it sounds like, if there's leftover. They could pay it to Bobby to launch a diversity and equity initiative within the company. I mean, that's what, like a month's salary from him? Temporal is now the time to buy AMC, GME, or Cloviet. Maybe. Now's not the time to do the video on that. That's for sure. Okay. So let's take a look here. The CNN doesn't do comments. GameSpot usually does comments, but I've noticed when they get to anything that they're afraid of what the comments are going to be like, they've started shutting off comments, probably because they don't want to, well, because they don't want to have to deal with monitoring them, that sort of thing. But I've noticed that they've been doing that within this last week or two, so no comment button there for this one. So let's head over to Reddit. Reddit has comments for us. News sites that don't do comments are so boring. Cowards. What they are is cowards. But I understand why they don't, and the problem that you run into is you have some news sites that do comments will then find that Google stops directing to them or Google stops sharing ad revenue with them if they don't moderate their comments perfectly enough for Google's taste, because Google is doing, hey, we've made deals with advertisers if we're going to send people to safe places or we're going to place their advertisements on places that are safe. And then you had this ism, whatever comment that was there that was on the website, and the advertiser doesn't want to be associated with that, and you make your money from ad revenue sharing type stuff, all that. So no, we're not going to do that. So Google has sort of strong-armed all but the biggest players, like the New York Times, into getting rid of their comment section. And you saw this, you've seen this. It's really kind of nonsense in my opinion, but you do understand the association that companies are going to want to have of, no, we don't want to be on a place that has terrible, that has these words on the page or this sort of thing. And it's unfortunate because it really does make it like, okay, well, we want to know how the world feels about this. Does the world feel like this is a super low number or a super high number? Does the world feel like this is appropriate? Does the world feel like this was nonsense? We would like to know how the rest of the world feels about it. That's something that's interesting, especially on a piece like this that is mostly a factual piece, not an opinion piece. Well, what are people's opinions? Humans have a bit of a craving to know what the world is thinking. So I agree. It's lame. It's cowardly. I understand how we got here. Little bit of why people should try to diversify away from Google. You'll notice that, other search engines exist, but hey, that's where we are right now. Should I short the active Blizzard stock? I doubt it. Well, I wouldn't short it necessarily short term. How do I want to put that? You could. I probably wouldn't recommend that because they've mostly been okay. They just had their Diablo re-release come out. They do have Overwatch 2 in the future. There's some concern over Overwatch 2 based on what people saw in the demo at halftime, but I would expect them to, still be making good money for a couple years. People get outraged about this sort of thing. They're unhappy. They are like, oh no, that's terrible, all that. But then they go on and continue to buy the games. Remember, this isn't the first time Activision Blizzard has had controversy. They had controversy over Hong Kong, but people still wanted to play what came out after that. They had the Hong Kong controversy surrounding Hearthstone, and people still wanted to play, I think, classic WoW, and a WoW expansion maybe came after that, and they did quite well. And then, oh, okay, well, now there's controversy surrounding this with StarCraft, and nope, people buy the next game. Like, people tend to buy the next game, and it's a bit of a joke of boycotting video game companies. You sort of look at the Call of Duty, I think it was a Call of Duty image that just sort of sums it up perfectly, where it's like, oh, they're going to boycott. They're not going to buy the games. They're not going to do this unless they fix the maps or something like that for the next release. And it was like a PlayStation group or whatever that, was thousands of members strong, and like 90+% of them were playing it on release day, and you could see it in the group. And it's just sort of like, okay, well, that's sort of the story. Now, that's more than a decade old at this point, but the story hasn't really changed. And that's always been pretty true. Like, boycott, not always been pretty true, but that's not just the video game industry. That's true in other places too. Like, when you had the Twitch, what was it? Twitch was having the hate raid things, and you had that where creators were going to boycott Twitch for a day or something like that. And what did you see? Okay, or creators were going to like hardcore boycott Twitch, and it's like, okay, 15% less viewership, maybe for one day, and that was it. And it's like, well, one day, 15% less, and that's the statement that's going to do it. Like, there's really not much consistent holdout action. Like, oh, not gonna. Well, okay, maybe I won't play it day one, but by day 3, everyone's having so much fun, and I'm afraid I'm missing out, so I'm gonna go buy it. Like, mostly this stuff doesn't do it unless it actually takes down the company, or unless they're like actually not producing a good product. People mostly forgot about Riot's almost identical case. Yep. That's why people go to Reddit to discuss news stories, not the news sites. Sort of, yeah. The Overwatch streamers that didn't take part in the walkout got really good numbers for that day. I bet. Yeah, there was an Overwatch. There was a walkout for Activision Blizzard specifically, and the ones that didn't, well, the viewers were still there. Like, it puts pressure on some of the creators of like, oh my goodness, you streamed on this day. How terrible of you. But the viewers, because they're anonymous, can pretty quietly go watch everywhere, and what do you know? The numbers don't actually go down very much because the viewers just went to other places that were still of the topic that was interesting to them. It's not a very effective system. It's why you see people are rarely actually willing to vote with their wallet, vote with their attention, vote with that sort of thing when it comes to this. They're willing to go, no, we're going to review bomb your movie, your video game, that sort of thing. We're going to leave nasty comments. We're going to go on Twitter and be like, oh my God, you're awful, whatever. But, oh, I have to actually inconvenience myself slightly by not buying a game? No, I'm not gonna do that. Or not watching content? I'm not gonna do that. Or I hear this movie is, completely against your values or this or that. Well, I'm not gonna watch it. Well, no, it's still what everyone's gonna be talking about this summer, so I want to see it. I just want everyone to know that I'm mad. Well, knowing that you're mad doesn't actually hurt them, even if you gave them a 0 out of 10 as a score or whatever. Yeah. Nobla, I don't rate them as long-term buy and hold. I'd actually say the horizon is good for a couple years, but I would probably be more interested in getting out after. I mean, how do I want to put this? I put together a little bit of a workup for companies that I would actually consider longer term, potentially being, hey, these are the companies that could be the Blizzards, the Squaresofts of the future. And I say that for people that are your and my age, blah, where it's more like they understand, hey, you could constantly count on these companies to, maybe they're not releasing a bajillion games, but whenever they're releasing a game, about a decade, 2 decades ago, you can count on, hey, this is going to be a 8 or a 9. Like every game they release is going to be an 8 or a 9 out of 10. And I don't mean that on inflated video game review scores. I mean like every game is actually going to feel like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. These are good. Like, oh, Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9, like Final Fantasy 7, amazing. Final Fantasy 8, some people would consider a drop, but still a solid 8 out of 10 type game. Final Fantasy 10, probably another 9 or a 10 out of 10 game. Oh, we can go over to Blizzard. Warcraft 3, that was a fantastic game. StarCraft, that was a fantastic game. And you could just count on every game was going to be very good. Blizzard is long gone off of that list, but if you wanted to go, hey, where do we find the next thing either to invest in or to go, hey, to just be comfortable pre-ordering from, it would be making a list of those companies again. And I've actually made that list and I've been thinking about turning that into a video, and I will do so. But they would not be on my long-term list. On my short-term list, if you already have it, or if you're going, hey, maybe people are getting out because they see this, sure, you could go, hey, gonna get it. Hold on to it for a year or two, sure, and go, hey, okay, now we're on the other side of Overwatch 2, now we're on the other side of some mobile releases, that sort of thing. Okay, now let's go ahead and quietly get out of this. But there's not going to be some huge dip that you're getting out right before or a huge spike. It's just, I expect they're going to do fine for another couple years. But also, the reality is that's like tied somewhat to game quality, and we don't know how much is coming from Blizzard. Like if we were talking about Blizzard as a stock, yeah, that would be basically where I am. The problem is when you include Activision in there and King in there, which is really where the money is coming from, publishing and mobile games. I am not closely enough following what they're doing in the mobile space, and they may have tons there. But when we think of like console and PC games and mostly Blizzard, yeah, that's where I would go. I'd go, no, they're going to be fine for probably another year or two. So I would say medium to long term, sure. Movies like Saw and Human Centipede are designed to cause a scandal to promote themselves? Sure. Okay, let's take a look at this. I remember when Sega announced they were no longer making consoles and their share price rocketed, the opposite of what gamers would have expected. Right. Because consoles were not successful for them, but they did have a fine game library. Okay, so worth noting, this is only with the EEOC. The lawsuit brought up by the California is still active. Yep, as well as SEC and National Labor Relations Board. When California filed against Riot has been going since 2018. Yep. 10% of what Bobby was paid last year. Okay. So slightly over a month's salary for the CEO. Yep, and that's why 18 million is a pretty small number that we're looking at here. Now, obviously, not everyone is paid like the CEO is paid, but it is a relatively small number. Like that's a deal for getting out of it, even though it's only 1/4 of the 4 they're in. I think most people are going to view that as a deal in getting out of it. I doubt the courts will throw out the deal. I suspect the courts, if I had to guess, I would say the courts will go, okay, fine. If you guys reach this settlement, we'll go with it. The court certainly has the ability to review it and say, absolutely not, this is a joke, but it's unlikely that they will. They're fighting over whether it's 10% or 8%, whatever. Still about to make 154 million this year. Number is missing a zero. No, it's not. Or even 2 zeros. Yeah, I mean, we might think that it should be for 160 million. Maybe people like that. Maybe people would prefer that. That said, again, we don't know. The reason it's 18 million could be that the evidence that they have is very weak. It could be that the evidence that they have is very, very weak. That's what, again, I'm not saying that that is the case, but what helps drive these numbers up and down is how strong is your evidence, how much of your evidence is, how credible are the witnesses that you can bring to testify. Like, that's what you're looking at. And if it's a, hey, you have your evidence is weak or your chance to do this is poor, that's going to drive down the value. Now, if you get hit and lose, you're still going to go down big and get, 600 million was the example that I lost earlier. So Activision Blizzard does their calculation and goes, okay, we're still willing to pay you because even if there's only a 20% chance of getting hit by 600 million, I'm just making up the number and the percent versus 100% chance that we pay this and it's out of the news cycle. It's one less thing. There's less axes hanging over their head when there's the other 3 lawsuits. 100% chance of 18 million plus the axes are gone. Yeah, that makes sense. That seems like a reasonable deal. So we don't know exactly why 18 million was the number. Whether it's just, hey, the abilities of what they could go after them was low in terms of this agency, or whether evidence was weak or what. We don't really know. But this does look like a bit of a steal for Blizzard, Activision Blizzard. Okay. Okay, that seems low. Welcome to America, most litigious nation on earth. I don't think that is America. Isn't that Germany? Okay. Still 5th for litigious. Okay. Outcome of 1 out of 4 lawsuits. Nothing too interesting here. Not asking this genuinely, not as a troll or bait. Can someone point me towards evidence of some behavior that has warranted all these lawsuit stories and whatnot? For instance, I'm still not sure what Jesse McCree, actually did to warrant the anger at him. No one seems to mention anything specific in the comments on social media. So this person wants to be clear. They're not trying to downplay it. They just want to find the evidence. There's a lot of stuff that happened. He was part of a group that made up the Cosby Suite. Purpose was to sleep with a bunch of women. That sounds normal, sleazy, but not bad. But they would purposely get women drunk, which at that point is, I've probably used that word too many times in this video already, bad adult things with violence. Yeah, we'll recode it like that. They also have been plenty of current or former female employees from Blizzard coming out talking about bad adult things they've faced on the job, getting paid unfairly compensated on male coworkers. Problem that is super common in the gaming industry. Writers face similar lawsuits. Okay. That's fine. And then we'd have to go into bad comments, and bad comments can be interesting, but can also say things that YouTube won't like in terms of even showing up on the screen. Speaking of what I did earlier of comment sections here not being present, YouTube is Google. Okay, that's fine. Drop in the bucket. Okay, these are all one vote up votes. We don't care. Okay, we'll catch up one more time on chat, and then we can wrap this one up. Okay. This topic cross-posted to any subs with more qualified commentators. I didn't go check any of the legal subs, which might have been more interesting. I went through sort of the video game news here. That's something that I'd probably think to do more in the future, and I'm not going to go searching now on stream. Um, but that would be an excellent idea for the future, James, for me to go try and find, hey, can we find anything a little bit more interesting, a little bit further there? Because, yeah, the quality level, basically we got a gut check reaction, which is still interesting of, hey, that doesn't feel like enough. Hey, that's 10% or whatever, or 1 month's pay for Bobby. But we didn't get anything too interesting here other than, okay, I guess we had one person going, hey, can someone tell us what the evidence is? And you're never going to fully get the evidence ahead of time because well, yes, discovery happens and such, there is, okay, they want to have it. They want to have it to unload in a specific manner during the trial. Oh, view discussion in 3 other communities at the top. Can I? Can I? There we can. There we can. Thank you. Okay. Only one without votes is this. COD competitive. No, none of these have comments except this one. What does Call of Duty think? Surprised. CEO wasn't forced to step down, but other than that, this is playing out exactly like I thought it would. Disappointed and highly doubt there will be any meaningful change at Activision Blizzard. Sure. Wasn't likely to step down. They're making too much money. And same reason I'm not counting on their stock price to go down and wouldn't recommend shorting them in any sort of medium term. Uh-huh. Hope people didn't think it would change COD or anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing too interesting here. Okay, we'll go ahead and call it there. If you guys enjoy this type of content, please do drop a like, consider subscribing if you haven't already. We cover news here when it relates to anything video game-ish. We cover obviously lots of Overwatch content. That's kind of our main focus. We do map reviews. We do reviews of gameplay. We do both for regular people who want coaching as well as reviewing pro games, that sort of thing. And then we just get into whatever's interesting for us. We do some myth busting, all that good stuff. Guide evaluation, it's fun. If any of that sounds interesting to you, consider subscribing. Consider joining the Discord in the description below and becoming a watcher, just with a quick reaction in there so that you can see when we go live, see what topics we're covering, so that you can be part of the conversation, talk about it. We can get into it like I did with a few of our viewers here today. But we'll go ahead and call it there.